Commander Taiwan Park couldn't sleep. He stood in his private quarters aboard humanity's grand fortress Shangbiak, staring at the stars through the reinforced window. The massive structure, built inside an asteroid, had been his home for the past 5 years. Tonight felt different. The usual comfort of the fortress's thick walls didn't ease his mind. He picked up his data tablet and checked the time. 3:45 a.m. Earth Standard Time. The night shift crew was keeping the fortress running smoothly, but something in his gut told him to be alert. 25 years of military service had taught him to trust these feelings. A soft beep from his communication device broke the silence. "Commander, you should come to the observation deck." Captain Hae-Nul Kim's voice was calm but carried an edge of urgency. "Our long-range sensors have detected something unusual." "On my way," Taiwan replied, already reaching for his uniform jacket. He quickly dressed and stepped into the corridor. The fortress's lighting was dimmed for the night cycle, creating long shadows along the curved hallways. The walk to the observation deck took exactly 7 minutes. Taiwan had counted the steps many times. It helped him think. The deck's massive windows offered a clear view of Earth below, a blue jewel floating in the darkness of space. But tonight, his attention was drawn to something else. Hae-Nul stood at the main console, her fingers moving quickly over the holographic controls. She looked up as Taiwan entered. "Commander, look at this." She gestured to the main screen, where several red dots were appearing at the edge of their sensor range. "How many?" Taiwan asked, leaning closer to the display. 50 ships so far, and more are coming. They're using a new kind of jump signature we haven't seen before." Hae-Nul expanded the display, showing the energy readings. "They're trying to hide their approach, but our new sensors caught them anyway." Taiwan watched as more red dots appeared. The Celestial Dominion was coming again, but this time they weren't announcing their arrival with their usual arrogance. This was different. "Wake up the senior staff," he ordered, "and get me Chief Engineer Sunmei. I want to know if the fortress's new defense systems are ready." Hae-Nul nodded and sent out the alert. Within minutes, the observation deck began filling with officers. Each of them had been chosen for their skill and dedication. They were the best Earth had to offer. Chief Engineer Sunmei Lee arrived last, her work uniform wrinkled as if she'd been sleeping in it. She probably had. She'd been working on the fortress's defenses non-stop for weeks. "Commander," she said, nodding to Taiwan. "I saw the alert. They're early. Are we ready?" Taiwan asked simply. Sunmei smiled slightly. "The outer layers are exactly as they should be. Everything looks normal, exactly like they'd expect." She pulled up her own data pad, showing complex diagrams of the fortress's structure. "They'll see what they want to see." The room grew quieter as more ships appeared on the screen. The Celestial Dominion's fleet was massive this time, larger than any attack force they'd sent before. The aliens had been trying to destroy Shangbiak for years, calling it an insult to their power. They couldn't allow humans to have such a strong fortress so close to Earth. 120 ships now, Hae-Nul reported, including 3 of their super destroyers. Taiwan walked to the window, clasping his hands behind his back. The fortress's outer surface looked simple and strong: thick metal plates, defense turrets, and shield generators. It was exactly what everyone expected a human fortress to look like. That was the point. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them Operation Paper Crane is starting ahead of schedule." Lieutenant Yun-Ji Choi, the youngest officer on the deck, looked confused. "Sir, why do we call it Operation Paper Crane? It doesn't make sense to name our biggest defense project after something so fragile." Taiwan turned to face her. "Lieutenant, what happens when you try to tear a piece of paper?" "It tears, sir." "And what can you do with the torn pieces?" "You can make something new with them." Taiwan nodded. "Exactly. The Dominion thinks strength means being unbreakable. They don't understand that sometimes the ability to break and reform can be an even greater power. The first enemy ships were visible now, their purple-tinted hulls reflecting the distant sunlight. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their superior numbers and technology. The Dominion always attacked the same way. They would surround the fortress, demand surrender, and then attack from all sides when humans refused. Dr. Jaiho Kang hurried onto the deck, carrying several data crystals. The head scientist looked excited despite the danger. "Commander, the quantum grid is showing perfect readings. Every layer is linked exactly as we planned." "Good," Tai-1 said. "How many layers did you manage to complete?" 15. Jaiho replied proudly. Each one connected to the others through quantum entanglement. The energy transfer systems are ready. The enemy fleet had stopped just outside normal weapon range. A communication request flashed on the main screen. Newell looked at Tai-1, waiting for his signal. "Let's hear what they have to say," he said, straightening his uniform. It would be rude to ignore them. The screen lit up, showing the face of High Admiral Yi-Jin. The Dominion officer looked almost human except for the slight purple tint to their skin and the ceremonial markings around their eyes. "Commander Park," they said, their voice translated smoothly by the computer. "I see you're awake. Good. This will be our last meeting." "High Admiral," Tai-1 replied politely. "You seem very confident about that." Yi-Jin smiled coldly. "We have studied your fortress for years. We know every detail of its construction, every weapon, every shield frequency. And now we have brought something new, a weapon that can tear through any defense you have." "That sounds impressive," Tai-1 said. "But you've tried to destroy Sanbiak many times before. What makes this time different?" The alien leader's smile widened. "Because this time, we understand how humans think. You believe in making things stronger, building better walls, adding more shields. But what happens when we bring a weapon that simply ignores all of that?" Behind Tai-1, Sunmai and Jiho exchanged quick glances. Everything was going exactly as they had predicted. The Dominion's arrogance was their greatest weakness. They thought they had humans figured out. "I'll give you one chance to surrender," Yi-Jin continued. "Evacuate your fortress and hand it over to us. We will allow your people to leave safely. Refuse, and we will destroy everything." Tai-1 pretended to think about it. He needed to buy a little more time. The quantum grid was still warming up. "That's a generous offer," he said slowly. "But I have a responsibility to protect Earth's shipyards. You understand, of course." Yi-Jin's expression hardened. "Then you leave us no choice. We will show the galaxy that humanity's greatest fortress is nothing but a paper wall before our power." The communication cut off. "They're charging weapons," Newell reported calmly. "All ships are moving into attack position." Tai-1 turned to his crew. "Everyone knows their part. Remember, let them think they're winning. Let them get overconfident. That's when we'll show them what humanity's paper fortress can really do." The first shots from the Dominion fleet lit up space like purple lightning. Their new weapon created strange distortions in the vacuum, twisting the very fabric of space-time as it approached the fortress. "Outer shield holding," Lieutenant Yunji reported. "But these readings are strange. The weapon isn't trying to break through the shields. It's trying to erase them completely." "Let them hit us," Tai-1 ordered. "Sunmai, start the power transfer sequence. Jaiho, monitor the quantum grid. Everything else happens exactly as we planned." The fortress shook as more shots landed. Warning alarms began to sound as the outer shield started to fail. The Dominion ships moved closer, pressing their advantage. "First shield layer is down," Newell announced. Second layer showing similar degradation patterns. Tai-1 watched the enemy fleet through the window. They were moving exactly as predicted, forming a sphere around the fortress to attack from all angles. They thought they had humanity's greatest fortress trapped. They didn't realize that Xianbiak wasn't trapped with them. They were trapped with Xianbiak. "Sir," Sunmai called out, excitement in her voice. The power transfer is working perfectly. Each hit from their new weapon is feeding energy directly into the quantum grid. We're already at 30% capacity. Taiwan allowed himself a small smile. Good. Let them think they're winning for a little longer. Sometimes the best way to show true strength is to appear weak at just the right moment. The fortress continued to shake as more layers of defense fell. To the Dominion fleet, it looked like their greatest victory was at hand. They didn't understand that every shot they fired, every layer they destroyed, was only making humanity's paper fortress stronger. The real battle was about to begin. The Celestial Dominion's purple beams continued to tear through Sanbiak's outer defenses. From their ships, it looked like a perfect victory. High Admiral Yi Jin watched with satisfaction as layer after layer of human engineering crumbled before their new weapon. Inside the fortress's command center, Commander Taiwan Park stayed calm. He watched the main display as red warning signals flashed across the screen. Next to him, Captain Hae-Nul Kim called out damage reports in a steady voice. "Outer defense ring is completely gone," she said. "Third layer of shields failing. Fourth layer showing first signs of breakdown." Chief Engineer Sun Mei Li worked at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. "Power collection at 65%. She reported with a hint of excitement. "Their weapon is giving us exactly what we need." The fortress shook again. This time, pieces of the outer wall began to break away, floating off into space. The Dominion fleet moved closer, pressing their advantage. They thought they were watching humanity's greatest fortress fall apart. Message from High Admiral Yi Jin. Lieutenant Yunji announced. "They're offering us one last chance to surrender." Taiwan straightened his uniform. "Put them on screen. Let's keep them talking while the quantum grid charges." Yi Jin's face appeared again, wearing a look of triumph. "Commander Park, surely you see the futility of resistance now. Your mighty fortress is falling apart like wet paper." "It does look that way, doesn't it?" Taiwan replied calmly. "But tell me, High Admiral, have you ever wondered why we let you study our fortress so carefully all these years?" Yi Jin's smile faltered slightly. "Let us. We gathered our intelligence despite your best efforts to hide your fortress's secrets." "Did you?" Taiwan asked. "Did you ever think it was a bit too easy? That we made our defense plans a bit too obvious?" In the background, Dr. Jai-Ho Kang monitored the quantum grid status. He caught Taiwan's eye and nodded. They were almost ready. Yi Jin's expression turned angry. "Your human tricks won't save you. Our new weapon breaks down the very structure of matter. Nothing can resist it." "Breaking things down is easy," Taiwan said. "The real question is, what happens to all that energy you're pouring into our fortress?" Before Yi Jin could respond, Sun Mei called out, "Power collection at 90%. Quantum grid fully charged." "Now," Taiwan ordered, "show them what paper can really do." Dr. Jai-Ho activated the quantum grid. Throughout the fortress, the broken pieces that had been floating in space suddenly stopped. The energy from the Dominion's weapons had been feeding into thousands of quantum-linked nodes hidden within each fragment. On the enemy ship's sensors, something impossible was happening. The fortress wasn't just falling apart anymore. It was changing. Each broken piece began to glow with stored energy, forming new connections through quantum entanglement. "What is this?" Yi Jin demanded. "What are you doing?" "Teaching you about paper," Taiwan replied. "You see, when you tear a piece of paper, you don't destroy it. You just create new pieces that can become something else." The fortress fragments moved with purpose now, forming complex patterns in space. The energy stolen from the Dominion's weapons powered a transformation that their sensors couldn't understand. Where there had been simple walls and shields, now there were layers of quantum-linked defenses that could reshape themselves instantly. All sections responding perfectly, Sun Mai reported proudly. "The quantum grid is creating new defense patterns faster than their weapons can adapt." Hae-Nul studied the tactical display. "The enemy fleet is pulling back. They're trying to create distance to analyze what's happening. But it was too late for analysis. The fortress pieces that the Dominion thought they had destroyed were now moving to surround their fleet. Each fragment was connected to every other through quantum entanglement, allowing them to move as one massive defensive system. Lieutenant Yunji, Ta-1 ordered, "Activate the energy reflection arrays." The young officer's hands moved quickly over her controls. The glowing fortress fragments shifted again, their surfaces aligning perfectly. The next shots from the Dominion fleet didn't break anything. Instead, they bounced back, amplified by the quantum grid's stored power. 3 enemy ships disappeared in bright flashes as their own weapons' energy was turned against them. The others quickly stopped firing, realizing that each shot only made their situation worse. "Impossible," Yijin whispered, their confidence finally breaking. "Our intelligence said your fortress was simple, primitive, just layers of metal and shields." "That's what we wanted you to think," Ta-1 explained. "We spent years studying how the Dominion thinks. You believe that strength means being solid, unchanging, unbreakable. So we gave you a fortress that looked exactly like what you expected." On the main display, the transformed fortress segments continued their dance through space. They moved like schools of fish, flowing around enemy ships, cutting off escape routes. Each piece could instantly connect with any other, creating new barriers wherever they were needed. Dr. Jiho stepped forward, unable to contain his excitement. The quantum entanglement lets each piece know what every other piece is doing. They can work together perfectly, adapting faster than any normal defense system. "And the energy?" Yijin asked, beginning to understand their mistake. "All the power from our weapons. Stored and redirected," Sun Mai explained, pride clear in her voice. "Your new weapon doesn't destroy matter. It transforms it. We just help the transformation go in a different direction than you planned." The Dominion fleet was now completely surrounded by the fortress they thought they had destroyed. The glowing fragments had formed a perfect sphere around them, each piece ready to reflect any attack back at the ships. "Commander," He Newell reported, "we have targeting solutions on all enemy vessels. The quantum grid can redirect their weapon energy to any point we choose." Tai-1 nodded, then turned back to the screen where Yujin waited. "So, High Admiral, shall we discuss surrender terms? Or would you prefer to see what else our paper fortress can do?" The command center fell silent, waiting for the Dominion leader's response. Yijin looked around their own bridge, then back at Ta-1. The alien's purple-tinted face showed a mixture of fear and respect. "You knew," Yijin said finally. "You knew we would bring this weapon. You planned for it." "We did more than plan for it," Ta-1 replied. "We built our entire fortress around the idea that someday someone would try to tear it apart. The Dominion thinks humans are primitive because we haven't spread as far through space as you have. But sometimes, staying in one place lets you think more deeply about how to defend it." Sun Mei's console beeped. "Commander, the quantum grid is showing some interesting possibilities. With the energy we've collected, we could reconfigure the fortress into several new forms. We could even create a temporary wormhole to send their fleet far away from Earth." "That won't be necessary," Yijin said quickly. We will withdraw. You have won this battle, Commander Park." Tai-1 smiled slightly. "No, High Admiral. We won this battle 3 years ago, when we first let your spies discover our fortress's fake design plans. Everything since then has just been waiting for you to spring our trap." The Dominion fleet began powering down their weapons. Around them, the fortress fragments continued their complex dance, a demonstration of human ingenuity that would soon become legend throughout the galaxy. "Remember this day," Tai-1 said to Yijin. "Remember that humanity's greatest strength isn't in building walls that can't be broken. It's in knowing how to turn destruction into creation. You thought our fortress was as fragile as paper, and you were right. Paper can be torn, but it can also be folded into new shapes, turned into new things, used in ways you never expected. As the enemy fleet prepared to retreat, Lieutenant Yunjai looked up from her station. "Sir, should we reconfigure the fortress back to its original shape?" "No," Tadwan replied. "Let them see it like this. Let them remember that they didn't destroy humanity's fortress. They helped us make it stronger." The command center crew watched as the Dominion ships slowly backed away, careful not to make any threatening moves. The glowing fortress fragments parted to let them leave, a final demonstration of both power and mercy. "Send a message to Earth Command," Tadwan ordered. "Tell them Operation Paper Crane was a complete success. And add a note. Sometimes the best way to build an indestructible fortress is to build one that never needs to be indestructible at all." 3 days after the battle, Commander Tadwan Park walked through the transformed corridors of Songbiak. The fortress hadn't returned to its original shape. Instead, it had become something new, something no one had expected. The quantum grid had created possibilities that even its designers hadn't imagined. Chief Engineer Sun Medley walked beside him, holding her datapad. "The energy we collected from their weapons changed everything," she explained. "The quantum connections are growing stronger. The fortress is learning." They stopped at a window. Outside, the fortress fragments continued their slow dance through space. Each piece glowed with stored energy, creating patterns that looked like stars moving in perfect harmony. "Learning?" Tadwan asked. "We didn't program it to learn." "That's the interesting part," Sunmai said. She showed him the datapad. "The quantum links aren't just connecting the pieces in space. They're sharing information, creating new patterns based on what worked best during the battle." They reached the new command center. It wasn't a single room anymore, but a network of connected spaces that could shift and change as needed. Captain Haenul Kim was there, working with Lieutenant Yunji to map the fortress's new capabilities. "Commander," Haenul called out, "you need to see this." She waved them over to the main display. "We're picking up something strange at the edge of our sensor range." The screen showed a cluster of ships approaching. They weren't Dominion vessels. These were different. Their designs were completely unknown. "They're broadcasting a message," Yunji reported, "in multiple languages. They want to talk." Tadwan straightened his uniform. "Put them on screen." The display lit up, showing an alien face unlike any they had seen before. The being had silver skin that seemed to flow like liquid metal, with eyes that changed color as it spoke. "Greetings, fortress builders," the alien said in perfect English. "We are the Watchers. We have observed your battle with the Dominion. What you have created, it is beyond anything we have seen in 10,000 years of watching." Dr. Jaiho Kang hurried into the command center, his eyes wide with excitement. "Commander, the quantum grid is reacting to their presence. It's like it recognizes something about their technology." The alien nodded. "We see that your fortress can sense our quantum matrices. This is good. You have discovered something that most species take millennia to understand. The true nature of space itself." "What do you mean?" Taiwan asked. "Your paper fortress, as you call it," the Watcher explained, "is not just a defensive structure. You have created something that exists between states of matter, something that can reshape reality itself. But you have only scratched the surface of what it can do." Sunmi stepped forward. "The energy patterns, they're not just random changes, are they? The quantum grid is trying to tell us something." "Yes," the Watcher said. "Just as paper can be folded to create new shapes, space itself can be folded to create new realities. The Dominion's weapon didn't nearly destroy your fortress. It helped awaken it." The command center crew watched in amazement as the Watcher's ships moved closer. They were beautiful, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid silver. As they approached, the fortress fragments responded, their glow changing to match the color of the alien vessels. "Your fortress recognizes what we are," the Watcher continued, "because in a way, you have created something similar to our own ships. We don't build solid structures. We create frameworks that can exist in multiple states at once, that can adapt to any situation. Dr. Jaiho's console began beeping rapidly. The quantum grid, it's establishing connections with their ships. The patterns, they're teaching us something. The watcher smiled, an expression that made their whole face ripple like water. We are sharing some basic quantum architecture principles with your fortress. Consider it a gift, a recognition of your species' achievement. You have proven that humanity is ready for the next step. Next step? Ta-1 asked. What do you mean? The galaxy is changing, the Watcher explained. The Dominion's rule is ending. They have grown too rigid, too certain of their way of doing things. But you, humans, you have shown that true strength comes from adaptation, from being willing to change, to break and reform into something new. Outside, the fortress fragments had begun moving in new patterns, mimicking the fluid grace of the Watcher's ships. The quantum grid was incorporating the alien knowledge, expanding its capabilities in ways that made Sun Li gasp with understanding. It's not just about defense anymore, she said quietly. We can use these principles for everything. Ships, colonies, entire cities that can adapt to any environment. Exactly, the Watcher said. Your paper fortress was the first step. Now you must decide what to do with this knowledge. Will you use it to build better walls, or will you use it to break down the walls that separate species and cultures? Hanuel studied the tactical display, watching the interaction between the fortress and the alien ships. The quantum grid is creating new configurations I've never seen before. It's like it's speaking the new language. A language as old as space itself, the Watcher corrected. You discovered it by accident, by thinking differently about strength and weakness. Now you must learn to speak it fluently. The fortress fragments suddenly moved in perfect unison, forming a complex pattern that matched the arrangement of the Watcher's ships. Energy flowed between them, creating bridges of light that seemed to bend space itself. Commander, Yunjai called out, I'm detecting changes in the quantum field. The fortress isn't just copying their ships. It's starting to understand how they work. It's like watching someone learn to read. Tai-1 watched as his fortress, humanity's greatest achievement, began to transform into something even greater. All this, he said, because we decided to build something that could be broken. The Watcher's expression became serious. The Dominion will return. They cannot accept that their way of thinking is outdated, but when they come back, they will find more than a paper fortress waiting for them. They will find humanity ready to teach them about true strength. Dr. Jaiho was practically dancing with excitement as he read the data streaming across his screen. The quantum principles they're showing us, they could revolutionize everything we know about physics. This isn't just about defense anymore. This is about understanding the basic structure of the universe. Understanding is the first step, the Watcher agreed, but application is what matters. Your fortress proved that humans can think in ways that surprise even ancient species like ourselves. We look forward to seeing what you will create next. As if to emphasize their words, the fortress fragments began to move faster, creating complex three-dimensional patterns that seemed impossible to follow. Each movement was perfect, calculated, yet somehow organic and flowing. It's beautiful, Sun Mai whispered. We thought we were building a fortress, but we were really building a key to understanding something much bigger. The Watcher nodded. Keep that sense of wonder, humans. Keep questioning what is possible. And remember, the strongest things in the universe are not those that never break, but those that can become something new when broken. Outside the window, humanity's paper fortress continued its dance with the Watcher's ships, each movement teaching them more about the true nature of space, matter, and strength. It was no longer just a defensive structure. It had become humanity's first step into a larger universe. 1 month after meeting the Watchers, Xianbiak had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The fortress now moved like a living thing, its quantum-linked pieces flowing through space in endless patterns. Commander Ta-1 Park stood in the observation room, watching as his crew learned to work with their transformed home. Chief Engineer Sun lightly approached him, holding a cup of coffee. Earth Command finally stopped asking us to return the fortress to its original shape, she said with a smile. I think they're starting to understand that we can't go backward anymore. And we shouldn't want to, Ta Wan replied. He pointed to where Dr. Jiaho Kang was working with a group of students who had arrived from Earth's top universities. They were studying the quantum patterns, learning the new language of space that the Watchers had shown them. Lieutenant Yunji's voice came over the communication system. Commander, long-range sensors are picking up multiple jump signatures. It's the Dominion. They're back. Taiwan wasn't surprised. They had been expecting this. How many ships? 352, Captain Haenul Kim reported from her station, including 5 of their new supercarriers. They're not trying to hide this time. The command center crew moved with calm efficiency as they prepared for battle. But this time, everything was different. The fortress didn't need to pretend to be weak anymore. The Dominion fleet emerged from jump space in perfect attack formation. Their ships filled the sky like purple stars, their weapons already charged. High Admiral Yi Jin's face appeared on the main screen without waiting for a response. Commander Park, Yi Jin said, their voice hard. We have returned, as you knew we would. Our leaders have decided that your fortress represents too great a threat to the natural order. We will destroy it, no matter the cost. Taiwan nodded politely. High Admiral, before you attack, I think you should look more carefully at what you're seeing. Yi Jin paused, finally noticing how different the fortress looked. The quantum-linked fragments weren't just floating in space anymore. They were moving in complex patterns, creating shapes that seemed to bend reality itself. What have you done? Yi Jin whispered. We learned. Taiwan said simply. Your last attack taught us that we were thinking too small. We thought we were building a fortress, but we were really building a door to something much bigger. Dr. Jiaho stepped forward. The quantum field readings are stable, Commander. Should we show them what we've learned? Please do, Taiwan said. The fortress fragments began to move faster, their patterns becoming more complex. Space itself seemed to ripple around them. The Dominion fleet's sensors started showing impossible readings as reality shifted and changed. This is your last chance, High Admiral, Taiwan said calmly. You can turn around and leave, or you can stay and learn what happens when humanity really starts to use its imagination. Yi Jin's face showed a mixture of fear and anger. Fire all weapons. Destroy that abomination. The Dominion fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of energy beams cut through space toward the fortress. But this time, something very different happened. The fortress fragments moved like a school of fish avoiding a predator. Each piece knew exactly where to be, guided by the quantum connections that linked them all together. The enemy weapons didn't hit anything. They passed through empty space where fortress sections had been just moments before. Now, Taiwan ordered, show them what paper can really do when it learns new folds. Sun Mai activated the quantum grid's new configurations. The fortress fragments began to create shapes that shouldn't have been possible, folding space itself like origami. Each fold created new paths through reality, paths that the Dominion's weapons and sensors couldn't understand. Their ships are losing targeting lock, Haenul reported with a smile. Their computer systems can't predict where any part of the fortress will be from one moment to the next. The Dominion fleet's perfect formation began to break apart as their ships tried to track targets that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. The fortress wasn't just avoiding their attacks, it was changing the rules of how space itself worked. Quantum grid at full power, Dr. Jiaho announced, ready to demonstrate the lesson we learned from the Washers. Taiwan nodded. Begin the teaching demonstration. The fortress fragments suddenly stopped their complex dance. For a moment, they hung motionless in space. Then, with perfect coordination, they began to fold reality around the Dominion fleet. Ships that had been kilometers apart found themselves next to each other. Others discovered that the space between them had stretched, making it impossible to maintain formation. The perfect military order of the Dominion fleet dissolved into chaos as space itself refused to behave the way they expected. "What is this?" Yi Jin demanded. "What kind of weapon are you using?" "It's not a weapon," Sun Mai explained. "It's origami on a cosmic scale. We're just folding space the way you might fold paper. The fact that it's disrupting your fleet is just a useful side effect." On the tactical display, more Dominion ships were losing formation. Some were trying to jump away, but the quantum folds in space made their jump drives useless. They were trapped in humanity's lesson about the true nature of strength. "You see, High Admiral," Taiwan said, "we've learned that the universe isn't made of solid, unchangeable things. It's made of possibilities. The Watchers showed us that, but we had already started to understand it when we built our paper fortress." Lieutenant Yunji's console lit up with new readings. "Sir, the quantum field is starting to affect their ships directly. The space inside their hulls is becoming uncertain." Yi Jin's image flickered as their flagship's systems struggled with the changing nature of reality around them. "Stop this. This is not how space is supposed to work." "That's where you're wrong," Dr. Jeho said excitedly. "This is exactly how space works. We just never knew it before because we were too focused on building things that couldn't be broken. We never thought about building things that could change." The fortress fragments continued their work, folding space until the Dominion fleet was completely trapped in a pocket of reality that operated under different rules. Their weapons couldn't fire straight lines anymore because space itself curved around them. Their shields couldn't hold because the space they were trying to protect kept changing shape. "One last time, High Admiral," Taiwan offered. "Surrender, leave this space, and tell your leaders what you've seen here. Tell them that humanity isn't interested in building unbreakable walls anymore. We found something much more interesting to do with our time." On the screen, Yi Jin looked around their bridge, where instruments were showing readings that made no sense and weapons officers were reporting that nothing worked the way it should. Finally, they nodded slowly. We surrender," Yi Jin said quietly. "You have won. Again. But this victory, it's different. You haven't just defeated us. You've shown us that everything we believed about the nature of space and strength was wrong." Taiwan smiled. "That's the most important lesson anyone can learn, High Admiral. Being strong isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being able to change, to learn, to become something new when the old ways don't work anymore." The fortress began to unfold space, carefully returning the Dominion fleet to normal spacetime. As the enemy ships retreated, their perfect military formation replaced by a disorganized scramble to leave, Sun Mi turned to Taiwan. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity has mastered space folding. Everyone will want to know our secrets." "We'll teach them," Taiwan said, "just like the Watchers taught us. But first, we'll remind them of where it all started, with a fortress that everyone thought was as fragile as paper, until they learned that paper can be the strongest thing in the universe if you know how to fold it right." Above them, the fortress continued its endless dance through space, each movement teaching humanity more about the true nature of strength, change, and the infinite possibilities that exist in every fold of reality.